The War Machines, the ninth and final serial of Doctor Who's third season, first broadcast in four parts from the 25th of June to the 16th of July 1966. This would also be the final story to feature Dodo Chaplet, played by Jackie Lane, who I am aware recently passed away. Now, this was a case where I didn't know that she passed away when I ordered the story. I didn't order it because of that. Basically, I ordered the story, I and then I found out shortly afterwards that she had passed away. It was a complete coincidence, and I'm not trying to stir things up. My condolences to her family, but yeah. Also, with the actual penultimate story of Travon's, no, not Hartnell's run, the smugglers, currently missing, this is technically, at the moment I'm recording this, the penultimate story for William Hartnell's first Doctor. Now, Hartnell's first Doctor and Dodo Chaplet, played by Jackie Lane, arrived back in London after a long period of being away, and of course they end up in the 1960s, where they see that the post office tower, today known as the BT Tower, is finished. And while Dodo just wants time to once again go around London, meet up with friends and everything, they end up going to the BT Tower, where they meet up with several scientists, including Professor Brett, played by John Harvey, and Professor Crimpton, played by John Cater. Now, they have created a computer known as Votan, spelt Wotan but pronounced Votan, and once it's kind of connected up, once it's plugged in and powered up and everything, it will supposedly connect with every single other computer on the planet and create a vast interconnected web. Which I can understand. However, like all sci-fi in the 1960s through to practically the 1990s, it ends up going wrong in that the Votan, when it's connected up, does its own calculations and works out that in order for planet Earth to advance, humanity has to be left behind. So it plans to effectively take over, and only a few humans that they need in order to maintain the machinery will be kept alive. And it ends up hypnotizing several people in order to do its bidding, including Professor Brett, Professor Crimpton, uh, a a receptionist named Polly Wright, played by Annika Wills, and Dodo herself. Now, Polly at first is just an average assistant and the secretary to Professor Brett, but then later on she ends up taking Dodo just out when Dodo asks, "You want to go to a club somewhere?" Polly goes, "I know just the place." They end up going to Inferno, a club run by a bartender named Kitty, played by Sandra Bryant, and there they end up meeting up with a sailor named Ben Jackson, played by Michael Craze. To which I do like Ben's introduction into the story. I mean, when I originally read the kind of synopsis of this online, I just kind of felt that Polly and Ben didn't really have much of an introduction from what I'd read. But then actually seeing it on screen, I do actually think I do love Ben's introduction. And Polly's is all right, just working at the company and get swept up and everything. But I do love Ben's introduction. Essentially, when they come into the bar, Kitty directs them to him and goes, "Look, that guy has just been coming in every day of the week. He just sits at the end of the bar and just mopes. He's bringing everyone down. Do you think you'd cheer him up a bit?" So they go to the end of the bar and ask him what's the matter, and he reveals that while he is a sailor, his boat is due to ship out soon, and he's been stationed for a port roll. So he's feeling a little bit depressed because, well, he's being left behind while everyone else goes off into the action. To which I do understand his point of view, but then Polly does manage to cheer him up, and the two of them eventually go dancing. I mean, you can tell at first that she's merely just doing it just to pity him, but you know what? I do like the interactions they have together. Now, when the machine's Votan ends up taking over, the Doctor has to go and get help. And the main place that he finds that is in Sir Charles Summer, a politician played by William Mervyn, who, while he is uncertain of the Doctor's claims at first, does eventually come to believe it. And what Votan does is it ends up creating several machines which are essentially Earthbound versions of Daleks in order to essentially patrol the streets and keep the survivors of humanity in line. basically machines that have kind of giant caterpillar treads, steam guns, and a giant hammer to essentially dispense out justice and destroy. To which I do think this is a case of Doctor Who meets AI meets 2001: A Space Odyssey. A machine takes over and essentially goes, "We can't continue if humanity is at the helm." To which I do think they handle this about as well as they can. I do love. I love a lot about this story. I mean, I was watching it once again with family members, and I do remember one of them said that one thing I criticise in the Pertwee era stories is that it's very evident which ones were filmed inside and which ones were filmed outside due to the quality of the footage. They claim they saw that again with this story. With black and white stories, I don't necessarily think it's that noticeable. At least not compared to when colour came in. They also managed to get Kenneth Kendall in for a brief role in this story, which I do like. I mean, Kenneth Kendall was a news reporter or a news announcer in the 60s, so mostly his job at the time was sit at a desk and read out the script that's provided. And you know what? In order for a brief role in Doctor Who, it's nice to see him in there. They claim they recognise his voice, and you know what? Yeah, I like him in. I like him in this. Now, ultimately, they're able to stop Votan by reprogramming one of its machines and using it to destroy Votan, which breaks the kind of trance and sends everyone back to normal. However, partway through the story, the Doctor has been forced to send Dodo away after she has been hypnotised. He sends her to a house in the country owned by family members of Sir Charles Summer, and then at the end of the story, as he's waiting to pick her up, Polly and Ben come to him and present him with a letter saying she's decided to stay in London. And I do see that the Doctor is a little miffed. He's a little bit upset that she's left him, but he understands that she needs to move on with her life. And eventually, when he says, "Okay, thank you, I'll be off soon," when Ben and Polly turn to leave, they realise they've still got one of the Doctor's keys, and so try to give it back to him, only to enter the TARDIS as it dematerialises. And which evidently would set things up for the next story, The Smugglers, where he would discover they've effectively stowed away. Now, I do think this is a good story. It's not necessarily one of the greats, but you know what? Your life won't necessarily be detracted anything if you don't see it, but I advise you, check it out. It's a fun little story. And you know what? I actually think it's a good one for you to check out. So there you go. There's my quick little review of The War Machines from 1966. Once again, will my next story be? Well, I don't necessarily know, but I've got an idea. Whether I'll go through with it, well, we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, until next time, see ya.